I have 9 o'clock on Verizon. Everybody ready to go? Are you recording?
Everything.
Okay, good. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and call the Fire Policy Committee to order. Today is February 25th, 2026. It is 0900 in the morning, and we are at DPSST on Almsville Highway in Salem, Oregon. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and read the Fire Policy Committee administrative announcement. This is a public meeting, subject to public meeting law, and it will be digitally recorded. Deliberation of issues will only be conducted by the Fire Policy Committee members unless permitted by the chair. Remember to always state your name for the record. For cases dealing with denial or revocation, only information contained in the staff report can be considered once the staff report is adopted. Assumptions, outside knowledge, or personal experiences should not be included in any discussion. Individuals who engage in disruptive behavior that impedes official business will be asked to stop being disruptive or leave the meeting. Additional measures may be taken to have disruptive individuals removed if their continued presence poses a safety risk to other persons in the room or makes it impossible to continue the meeting. With that, we'll go ahead and start with introductions. Madison, if you do a roll call and staff intros.
My name is Madison Mancuso. I am Fire Program Support Specialist, and we'll start over there on that side of the table.
Thank you. Jennifer Howell, DPSST.
Caleb Allrott, DPSST.
Brooke Valiarivi, DPSST.
Chantel Getch, DPSST.
I'll do back row back there.
Maria Atwood, DPSST.
Sam Tenney, DPSST.
Thank you, and we'll start with Chair Heppel here.
Chris Eppel, Chair, Fire Policy Committee with the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office.
Claire.
Nope, sorry, Oregon Fire Chiefs Association. I was looking at you when I said that.
Welcome, Chief. Claire Berger with Oregon Department of State Fire Marshal.
Jack Carrier, Oregon Volunteer Firefighters.
Andy Ponce, Portland Fire Rescue.
Rose Douglas, Oregon Fire Training Associations.
Online.
Start with Joseph. Do you want to start?
Joseph Morno, OFDDA.
Perfect. Isaac.
Isaac McLennan, firefighter, Portland Fire and Rescue.
Levi, please.
Yeah, good morning. Levi Hopkins with the Oregon Department of Forestry.
Awesome. And then Andre.
Andre Lindauer, public member.
Perfect.
Great. Moving on to agenda number 2, so the approval of the meeting minutes. This will be by consensus and not a vote. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes from the previous meeting? Just looking around the room and online. Are there any requests for modifications?
Chair Heppel, I had one request for a modification under a second page, November 19. Within the body of the Fire Policy Committee discussion and consensus, where it goes into the narrative. See 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down. It talks about actions negatively affecting. It says moral of the fire department. I just would request that. I think it was morale was what that was intended to be. It's just a typo. Just want to make sure that it might change the intent of the minutes. That's all.
Great, thanks, Claire. Any other recommended changes? Hearing none and taking in consideration the correction that was brought up by the vice chair, I'm looking for a consensus by a thumbs up for acceptance of the meeting minutes. They're around the room, online, and they have been confirmed without any objections. Moving on to item number 3, discretionary case review checklist. If Brooke Bell Ruby would go ahead and present the discretionary case flow.
Thank you. Brooke Valiarivi for the record. As we do each meeting, we'll just quickly review the why and how we review cases before the Fire Policy Committee. So the first page of this quick sheet reviews why a case is flagged for review and then the timelines that are involved. First, how a case is triggered. So if DPSST receives an application or an E1 form for fire certification eligibility and finds that the firefighter has a felony conviction that occurred within the last 10 years from the date DPSST received the application or E1, we will bring any non-Measure 11 felony convictions before the committee for review. If we receive an application or an E1 and the individual has a conviction of a misdemeanor within the last 5 years of receipt of the application. The crime or conviction has to include one of the following circumstances to qualify for review. And that would be dishonesty or deceit, a sexual offense, a drug offense, discrimination, destruction of property, a crime against a public agency, involves illegal use or possession of a deadly weapon, or abuse, violence, or neglect against a person or an animal. Once staff confirms that the case meets these parameters, we will prepare a staff report to present to the committee. The firefighter will be invited to present verbal and written mitigation. And then the committee will discuss the case in its entirety and determine to adopt or return the staff report. If the staff report is adopted, the committee will make a recommendation to take action or no action to deny or revoke the firefighter certifications. And then this will go to the board for affirmation. Are there any questions about this process? With that, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Okay. So moving on to agenda item number 4. So that'll be Stephen Eubanks providing verbal mitigation in person. I'll slide over for a second, but yeah. Just want to.
We do have a little change. The guest speaker will be in between you two. We got a new camera system, so they would be looking at the back of his head online. So we changed this time, and if it doesn't work, we can move it next time.
I'll present the case first, and then we'll let you know when it's your time.
Okay. Stephen, my name is Chris Upple. I'm the chair of the Fire Policy Committee. Just a few rules for you before we start. You'll have 5 minutes to present a statement to the Fire Policy Committee. There will be no questions or conversation between the Fire Policy Committee and the mitigator allowed. Once the time is up, the committee will discuss your case. You may stay for the discussion or vote, or you may exit. I'm now going to turn the case over to Chantel, who's going to present the case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chantel Getz for the record. This case is for Stephen Eubanks. DPSST staff received notice that Stephen Eubanks had been arrested on August 4th of 2024. Staff tracked the court case and discovered that Eubanks was convicted of and pled guilty of failure to perform duties of a driver, a Class A misdemeanor, on November 13th of 2024. This case requires review by the Fire Policy Committee because the conviction occurred within the last 5 years and the underlying conduct that involves destruction of property. The following is a summary of the incident leading to Eubanks' arrest and conviction. On August 4th of 2024, police responded to a non-injury motor vehicle crash involving a vehicle that had crashed into a power pole and caused significant damage. The officer had run the vehicle's license plate and identified the registered owner as Eubanks. The officer went to Eubanks' residence and asked him what occurred leading up to the crash and why he did not report the crash to the sheriff's office. Eubanks stated that he was driving back from the Oregon Jamboree in Sweet Home, Oregon, when he began to feel tired and admitted to closing his eyes for a second and crashed. Eubanks also explained that he knew he was required to report to his insurance company, but was not aware he needed to report to the sheriff's office. Staff found the following as relevant circumstances for consideration. Eubanks is employed by Scioto Rural Fire Protection District and was at the time of this incident. Eubanks was certified at the time of the incident. He failed to report the crash to the sheriff's office. He was cooperative when the arresting officer came to his residence for questioning. Eubanks is currently on probation until November 13th of 2027. And Eubanks has paid all court fines in full as of October 23rd of 2025. Stephen, you will now have 5 minutes to present a statement to the committee. We will set a 5-minute timer for you. Would you like me to give you a 1-minute warning? It's up to you.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Good, okay. Let me go ahead and get this going for you. And whatever you want.
So I'm Stephen Eubanks. I was, on that night, when I dozed off and went in the ditch, I was not aware of the pole and like my hood was bent, you know, up toward the window and I couldn't see and airbags went off, so it was dusty in. And I know that back road well that I was lucky to see headlights coming and I went, you know, wanted to flag down help right away. And I was offered a ride home, and so I figured what are the odds, you know, late night to get a ride home. So that's where my vision was. I should have did a 360. I wish I could went back and did everything different. But what I've learned is no matter what, I should have just reported right away. Like, you know, not. Well, I did report it to the insurance first thing when I woke up, and then I saw a card in my door that the sheriff stopped by when I woke up. So I called him right away. I'm embarrassed by my actions. I haven't, prior to last year, I have not had any fines or tickets since 21 because I'm not a troublemaker. I like to have a good head on my shoulders and, you know, my family, you know, I like to, I mean, it's hard to talk. I've been like nervous, like ever since I had the letter in the mail come here, I've been beating myself up that I put myself in this situation because firefighting means a lot to me and I'd hate to lose my certs. And, but I'm the one that made the mistake and I'm hoping for a second chance. And I won't put myself in a situation to be here again if I get the opportunity to have a second chance. I just finally had a newer car. I was embarrassed that I had to explain to my whole family that I totaled my new car. And I don't, you know, I just like keep a good head on my shoulders. And from here on out, I want to raise the bar higher and make better life decisions and not put myself in this boat again. And I want to make SIO proud from here on out and you guys proud. So if you guys give me a second chance, it'd mean the world to me. That's all I could say right now.
With that, I will turn it over to the chair to lead the rest of the process, which will be a consensus to adopt or return the staff report, a discussion of the case in its entirety, including aggravating and mitigating circumstances, and then make a recommendation of action or no action for the board.
Okay, for this first step, I'll ask for consensus of the committee to adopt the record unless there is a need to send it back. So I guess I'll ask the question, is there a need to send the record back? Okay. Any committee member need to send it back? No. Hearing that, I'll look for a consensus to adopt the record. I'll just look for a thumbs up or a nod in the room and online. Okay, and the consensus adopts the record. With that, I'll open the case up for discussion. Please a reminder to state your name and identify any aggravating or mitigating factors. Case is now for discussion. Any committee members?
Andre Lindauer, for the record, I did not know that you had to report an accident to the sheriff's office if it was a single car accident. It would make sense from a common sense standpoint, but I didn't know it was a law. So I look at that as mitigating.
Andy Ponce for the record. So I've been in the profession for a long time. I also did not know that you needed to report that. I can also say being in the industry, being a firefighter, we handle the call and and go home. So in this case, single car accident, no other injuries, no flashlight, rural area. I honestly could see myself doing the exact same thing, not knowing. Seems like he was cooperative. He called right away when was notified the sheriff's office was looking for him. Yeah, there's a lot of mitigating factors, no aggravating factors for me in this case at all.
Anyone else?
For the record, Claire McGrew, much like what else has been said, I think also cooperation with the police was helpful. You addressed all fines, took responsibility in the letter, good support also from not only the fire chief, I believe, but also from supportive members as well. So thank you, sir.
Jack Carrier, I'm in agreement with everything that was said, and I think there is no attempt to disguise it or get away with it. Or, I mean, obviously, if you leave your vehicle there, you're not trying to get away with anything. So I think that's a mitigating circumstance for me, and I can understand how this happened.
Anyone else on the committee? Mitigating or aggravating factors? Okay, last chance. Okay, hearing no further, I'll ask Chantel from DPSSD staff to review the identified aggravating and mitigating factors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chantel Getch for the record. As of right now, we don't have any aggravating circumstances for this case. For the mitigating circumstances, we have that amongst many of you also unaware to report a single car accident. Eubanks was also cooperative with the police. He has paid all of his court fines and addressed those. He also included letters showing that he is aware of his mistakes and the recommendations from outside peers. And he also he didn't try to disguise or hide from the incident from occurring. Did I miss any of those circumstances or need to include anything?
Hearing none, I'll look for confirmation or consensus through a nod or a thumbs up of the identified factors. Consensus, good in the room, and we're good online. So those, we have consensus. Next, I'll call for a motion and a second to take action or no action. If so, and depending on your motion, please provide a brief statement of why they are recommending the action or no action.
Andy Ponson, for the record, I'll make a motion for no action for all of the mitigating factors as stated previously.
Jack Carrier, second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Madison, if we could have a roll call vote.
This vote is to recommend the board take no action on Stephen's certs. We'll start with Chair Heppel.
Aye.
Vice Chair McGrew.
Aye.
Committee Member Carriger.
Aye.
Committee Member Morneau.
Aye.
Committee Member Hopkins.
Aye.
Committee Member Ponce.
Aye.
Committee Member Douglas.
Aye.
Committee Member Dower.
Aye.
Committee Member McLennan.
Aye.
Motion carried, no action.
And that concludes agenda item number 4.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Okay, next will be agenda item number 5. This will be another fire discretionary case review. Number 5 is Clifton Boer, who will be providing verbal mitigation today, virtual.
I do not have him online. He's not requested to join yet.
What I'd like What I'd like to do is just go ahead and we'll bypass in case he does come back. If that's okay, we'll move on to case number 6 or agenda number 6. Okay, that's acceptable to the committee. Thank you. So agenda item number 6 will be fire discretionary case review of Kyle Clark, who will not be providing verbal mitigation today. I'll now jump down to DPSST staff. Chantel, if you could please introduce the case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chantel Getch for the record. This case is for Kyle Clark. In July of 2025, DPSST received an application for certification for Kyle Clark. During the routine background check, staff discovered that Clark had multiple criminal convictions in the state of Oregon. In December of 2020, May of 2021, August of 2021, and January of 2025, Clark was convicted of harassment, a Class B misdemeanor, and then 3 Class A misdemeanors, including driving under the influence of intoxicants, assault in the 4th degree, and criminal driving while suspended or revoked. This case requires review by the Fire Policy Committee because the convictions occurred within the last 5 years and involved violence against a person, dishonesty or deceit, and destruction of property. The following are summaries of each of the incidents leading to Clark's arrest and convictions. On July 4th of 2020, police responded to a call regarding an intoxicated person. According to the report, Clark's father informed the officer that Clark was intoxicated and came over to their house to speak to his ex-girlfriend. Clark had become upset and was yelling and hitting objects. The ex-girlfriend disclosed that Clark tripped her and caused her to fall by kicking the back of her legs. The officer observed visible bruising and redness on her calf, as well as an older-looking injury on her leg, which the ex-girlfriend disclosed was from a previous incident where Clark tripped her after she had hit him. The officer asked Clark what happened, and he said the ex-girlfriend tried to kick him, and he put his foot out, and she had tripped. He then stated that he helped her up. When asked about the bruising, Clark stated that it was his fault and to take him in for harassment. Clark was arrested for harassment, domestic violence, and disorderly conduct in the 2nd degree. On November 17th, 2020, police responded to a single vehicle crash involving Clark. According to the police report, Clark appeared to be visibly intoxicated and belligerent with slurred speech, bloodshot, and glassy eyes. Clark had admitted to consuming a few beers and shots of whiskey, but stated that he wasn't driving and it was his ex-girlfriend who was. His girlfriend who was. The officer asked where the girlfriend was, and Clark stated she left to get help. Later, the girlfriend arrived at the scene and the officer interviewed her. She disclosed that Clark had called her asking for help home and stated that he had been drinking at home, became upset, and left alone in his truck. A breath test revealed a blood alcohol concentration of 0.12%. Clark was arrested for driving while suspended and driving under the influence. On March 21st of 2021, police responded to a domestic dispute involving Clark. According to the police report, the victim and a witness were outside a hotel and the victim had swelling on their cheekbone. The victim disclosed that she and her boyfriend had been drinking at the restaurant next door prior to going to the hotel. She stated Clark fell asleep and she checked his phone, discovering he had been unfaithful to her. She confronted him and Clark became agitated, accused her of hitting him, and jumped on her, placing his hands over her nose and mouth. She stated she couldn't breathe and was frightened, so she scratched his face, and then Clark released her and punched her in the face. The officer tried to locate Clark, but he fled the hotel. Later contacted by phone, Clark told the officer his girlfriend began hitting him, which led to him shoving her and she ran outside. Clark stated he fled the scene because he didn't want to go to jail. Later, Clark called the officer back to report that he and his girlfriend were pushing each other and she started yelling, which led to him getting on top of her while placing his hands over her mouth to prevent her from screaming. He stated she scratched his mouth but didn't remember hitting her until later seeing photos. Clark was arrested for assault in the 4th degree and strangulation. On December 8th of 2023, police responded to a driving complaint involving Clark. According to the police report, a witness reported a vehicle speeding through their neighborhood and they followed it to a market. Clark had been driving the vehicle and had switched places with the passenger prior to officers arriving on scene. Clark had initially claimed that they had exchanged jackets prior to the police arrival, but then later admitted to that being untrue. Clark had denied driving and stated that the vehicle wasn't his. Clark was arrested for driving while suspended. Staff found the following as relevant circumstances for consideration. Clark was affiliated with Oregon Rural Fire Protection District, but as of today, he is not affiliated with a fire agency. Clark was certified at the time of the incident. Clark was uncooperative in most interactions with law enforcement. Clark was dishonest and deceitful in several encounters with law enforcement. Clark's repeated arrests and convictions demonstrate a pattern of behavior that involves violence and substance abuse. He has had several probation violations since his first arrest and is currently on probation until January 23rd of 2027. And as of today, Clark still owes money to the courts. There will be no verbal mitigation for this case, and with that, I will turn it over to the chair to lead the rest of the process, which will be a consensus to adopt or return the staff report, a discussion of the case in its entirety, including aggravating and mitigating circumstances, and then make a recommendation of action or no action for the board.
With that, I'll ask the committee, is there a need to return the case to staff for additional information? Okay, hearing none, I'll look for consensus by the committee through a thumbs up or a nod. In the room. Thank you. We do have consensus. Next, I'll open the case up for discussion. Remember to state your name and identify any aggravating or mitigating factors. Again, the case is open for discussion.
So Andre Lindauer for the record, point of clarification, I thought I heard that he was certified at the time of the incident, but the printed word says he was not certified. Did I just hear that wrong?
Chantal Getch for the record, I believe you did hear that wrong. He is not certified.
Okay, thank you. Further, so many aggravating circumstances on this in terms of the relevant circumstances. Is this someone we really want representing the fire district? That's my question.
Can talk. Rose Douglas for the record. So some aggravating circumstances is, I would say, the repeated violations. So the ongoing pattern of behavior, not just one incident, the violation of probation terms. So not being able to successfully complete that. Multiple of the incidents appear to involve an attempt to hide what happened, minimize what happened, or outright lie about what happened. So there seemed to be in each case some deceitfulness involved in it and an attempt to pass the blame onto somebody else. I would say the violence involved in at least half of the incidents were involved violence against another, particularly somebody that they're romantically involved with. So those would be my aggravating circumstance, as well as it looks like the driving, the last incident was after being affiliated with an agency. I will say one mitigating circumstance is, while yes, the record says he was affiliated with an agency at the time, unless I'm reading this wrong, most of the incidents occurred before he was affiliated, except for the final incident, which was the driving, the criminal driving while suspended or revoked was the one that occurred after. So those other ones were before he was affiliated, however, then continued to violate things after affiliation. So.
Andy Ponce for the record, I agree with all of your aggravating factors. I just also want to call out that he still owes money to the court. And then for me, the dishonesty and deceitfulness really sticks out because we are entrusted with the public dollar, basically with our equipment. And a lot of times on scene, people open up their doors when they're vulnerable for us to go in and treat them. And a lot of times we'll leave us their keys to lock up and stuff before, as they're getting transported to the hospital. We have to have the public trust at all times. And for me, he's broken that. So very aggravating for me.
Jack Carriger, I think the aggravating circumstances to this is that it's constant. There's no time period in here when behavioral changes have occurred. And considering the fact that it's gone on for 5 or 6 years, I don't see that change is going to happen. And this is definitely not somebody I think we want representing the fire service. And I don't think there are any mitigating circumstances in this case.
Any other committee members? The comments? Although, for the record, Chris Apple, Chair, just one comment piece is, in my travels around the state of Oregon and working with fire departments, I rarely come across one where within their organizational core values, it doesn't usually have something along the lines of integrity or trust associated with that. And certainly this individual's behavior is, I would say, quite divergent from that of any organization. And that's certainly a challenge for me. I think the other component is, as many of you have said, is just the history component. This isn't a one-time incident. There's a solid history and repetitive display of abuse, whether it's substance or physical. Certainly in the integrity issues and just poor behavior of that of someone who is a public official. So the other piece is there's a pretty good amount of documentation that substantiates the comments that have been made by board members included in today's package. With that, I'll ask any other comments? Aggravating or mitigating factors? Okay, I'll call for DPSST staff. Chantel, if you could review the identified aggravating and mitigating factors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chantel Getch for the record. For the aggravating circumstances, we have that it's a repeated or constant behavior, violation of probation, attempted to hide or lie from what was happening, past blame on others, the violence on individuals, and he still owes money to the courts. He was dishonesty and deceitful, and he appears to have broken public trust, divergent of integrity and trust of fire agencies as well. And then for the mitigating circumstances, we have the incidents prior to him being affiliated happened before him being affiliated with the agencies, except for one. Did I miss anything or need to include anything?
Hearing none, I'll look for confirmation or consensus on identifying factors through a nod or a thumbs up from committee members. Okay, we have consensus. Next, I'll call for a motion and a second to take action or no action. Please request, and I do request, a brief statement of why you're recommending the action or no action.
Ms. Douglas, for the record, I make a motion that we take action because through the aggravating circumstances that have been identified, this individual does not appear to hold the values and integrity that the fire service and this committee stands for.
Thank you.
Andy Poncel, second it. I don't believe those aggravating factors can be overcome. So.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, if I could get Madison DPSST staff to do a roll call vote.
So is to recommend the board take action on Kyle's case. We'll start with Chair Heppel.
Aye.
Chair McGrew.
Aye.
Committee member Carriger.
Aye.
Committee member Morneau.
Aye.
Committee member Hopkins.
Aye.
Committee Member Ponce,
Aye.
Committee Member Douglas,
Aye.
Committee Member Lindauer,
Aye.
Committee Member McLennan,
Aye.
and carried.
Thank you. Understand the motion carries. That completes agenda item number 6. Madison, has Clifton Boer arrived online?
We have both him and his attorney online. Yes, I will accept them into the meeting now.
Okay, with that, agenda number 5, this will be Clifton Boer will be providing verbal mitigation virtually.
Yes, I'm present.
Okay, great. Good morning, sir. Chris Heppel, the Chair of the Fire Policy Council. I'm just going to provide a few instructions and then I'll pass it over to DPSST staff. Can you hear me okay, sir?
I can't hear you.
Thank you. You'll have 5 minutes to present a statement to the Fire Policy Council or Committee. There'll be no questions or conversation between the Fire Policy Committee and the mitigator allowed. Once the time is up, the committee will discuss your case and you may stay for the discussion and vote, or you may exit.
Okay.
With that, I'll return back to DPSST staff to introduce the case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chantel Getch for the record. This case is for Clifton Boer. DPSST staff brought this case initially to the Fire Policy Committee on November 19th of 2025. The committee determined to return the staff report requesting the strangulation kit that was mentioned in the police report to be included. Staff obtained the strangulation kit and will now represent this case for the committee. DPSST staff received notice that Clifton Boer had been arrested on February 5th of 2025. Staff tracked the court case and discovered that Boer was convicted of and pled no contest to disorderly conduct in the 2nd degree, a Class B misdemeanor, on July 16th of 2025. This case requires review by the Fire Policy Committee because the conviction occurred within the last 5 years and the underlying conduct that involves violence against a person. The following is a summary of the incident leading to Boer's arrest and conviction. On February 5th of 2025, police responded to an abuse allegation related to an incident that occurred earlier that day involving Boer. According to the police report, Boer stated to police that they had been in an altercation with his stepson after coming home to see that the stepson didn't go to school and observed a bong intended for marijuana use in their room. Boer did admit to physically restraining his stepson and spitting in his face. In the police report, the stepson was also interviewed and stated that Boer had grabbed him by the throat with enough force to restrict him from his breathing and left marks on his neck. Police observed scrapes on the stepson's knees and slight redness around the throat area. The officer observed throughout the interview that the stepson's statements were inconsistent and changed multiple times. Boer was arrested for strangulation and assault in the 4th degree. Staff found the following as relevant circumstances for consideration. Boer is employed by Albany Fire Department and was at the time of this incident. Boer was certified at the time of the incident. Boer remained calm and was cooperative with the arresting officer about the physical altercation with his stepson. It was reported that Boer and his stepson have had previous verbal altercations in the past. Boer is currently on probation until January 16th of 2027. Boer is to do 40 hours of community service work and participate and complete an anger management course. Boer has paid all court order fines in full as of July 29th of 2025. Boer, you will have 5 minutes to present a statement to the committee. Last time I know we had the timer on the screen, but we're unable to do that today. So I'll have a timer here on the table. Might be a little small, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a 1-minute warning, okay? All right, and you may begin.
He's muted.
Oh, you're muted. Hang on, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oops, I just muted him again. I'm trying to unmute him. Go ahead and unmute one more time. Sorry about that. Go ahead and unmute one more time for me, please.
There we go.
Sorry about that. I accidentally muted you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Good morning and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Clifton Boer and I am a captain with Albany Fire Department and have served since 1999. For over 27 years, I have had the privilege of protecting my community and leading firefighters in high-risk, high-stress situations. During that time, I have maintained a completely clean professional record with no prior discipline, no criminal history, and no adverse law enforcement contact. I understand and respect DPSST's responsibility to uphold the integrity of public safety professions, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the concerns before you. The incident in question occurred during a highly emotional confrontation at home involving my teenage stepson. Physical contact did occur, and I take responsibility for allowing the situation to escalate to that point. However, I want to be clear that I did not choke him or apply pressure to his throat at any time. There were two brief physical engagements. The first occurred when he became aggressive and confrontational as I attempted to control his arms to prevent being struck. We lost balance and fell onto a bed. I disengaged immediately and moved away. The second engagement occurred shortly afterward. When he advanced toward me again, I turned to redirect him away from me, and we both lost balance and fell on the floor. He landed on his hands and knees, which resulted in scrapes to his knees. I acknowledged those injuries at the time, and I have never disputed how they occurred. I rolled away immediately after the fall and created distance. It is my understanding that the allegations of strangulation stems from this second incident. I want to state clearly and unequivocally that at no point did I flip him over, place my hands around his neck, or apply pressure to his throat. My physical contact was limited to restraining his arms and then disengaging as quickly as possible. The hospital report later documented redness on his neck. I cannot explain how that redness occurred, but it was not caused by my choking or strangulation by me. The report did not diagnose strangulation or document findings typical associated with airway compression or severe neck injury. Initial observations by responding officers also did not indicate significant injury at the scene. I respect the work of both the officers and the medical personnel. However, those observations did not reflect the actions I took. I regret that the situation escalated to any physical contact at all. With the benefit of hindsight, I would have removed myself immediately and sought outside assistance. Since this event, I've taken steps to ensure I am better prepared to manage personal conflict, including counseling and anger management training. As a captain, I am expected to demonstrate sound judgment and leadership under pressure. This incident does not reflect the standards I have upheld throughout my career, but I accept responsibilities for my role in allowing it to occur. Recently, I made the difficult decisions to move out of my home with my biological son in order to reduce conflict in the home and ensure a stable and safe environment for my son. This step was taken for my responsibility as a parent to him and my commitment to prevent any future escalations. This matter also reviewed by the Oregon Health Authority in relation to my certifications. After reviewing the circumstances, OHA reviewed the certificates and have continued to work without restrictions. I remain in good standing and committed to meeting all professional standards. Regarding the legal outcome, I accepted a no contest plea to a lower level
You have 1 minute.
disorderly conduct charge on the advice of counsel to avoid prolonged litigation and additional hardship for my family. I did not admit to the choking or assault, and I continue to deny those allegations. Since that time, I've complied with all court requirements, engaged in counseling beyond what was mandated, reviewed applicable policies, and continued to perform my duties as a captain. I remain committed to serving my department and community with integrity. I remain fully committed to this profession and to the standards expected of DPSST certified public safety leader. I intend to continue serving my community for at least the next decade. Since this incident, I have remained actively engaged in professional development, including recent DPSST certifying training and continuing education to ensure I continue to perform at the highest level of competency and accountability. This experience has been humbling and deeply impactful, and has reinforced the importance of stepping away from violent personal situations and using outside resources when necessary. I have learned from this incident and am committed to ensure nothing like this occurs again. Thank you for your time.
With that, I will turn it over to the chair to lead the rest of the process, which will be a consensus to adopt or return the staff report, a discussion of the case in its entirety, including aggravating and mitigating circumstances, and then make a recommendation of action or no action for the board.
Okay, first step in the process, is anyone on the committee see a need to return the case to staff for additional information? Hearing none, I'll ask for consensus of the committee to adopt the record through a nod or a thumbs up. Okay, we have consensus to adopt the record. Next, I'll open the case up for discussion. As a reminder, state your name and identify any aggravating or mitigating factors. Again, the case is open for discussion.
Jack Carrier. I think mitigating circumstances in this case is the fact that coming from a family who has, I guess, a mixed family with stepchildren, I understand how volatile those situations can be. That doesn't justify any kind of physical violence, I recognize, but I also understand that those circumstances can be overwhelming at times. The fact that so much has been done since then, and from the sound of things, a lot of it has been on the sacrifice of his own accord to try and make things better. And I think that a lot of the things that have happened have already gone above and beyond, I guess I'll say, punishment for this level. And a willingness to take on the responsibility to not only for the event itself, but for the health and well-being of the entire family in the future. I think some of those steps are pretty admirable to do that.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else on aggravating or mitigating circumstances?
Andy Ponce for the record. For me, there's a lot of mitigating here on this, all the steps that he has done to try to correct and make up for the situation. I also want to acknowledge how difficult of a situation that must be. As a parent, we got to try to raise our kids, treat them right from wrong. That's what he was attempting to do. But at times, that is an intense situation, and he acknowledges that it went a little too far. So I think we need to take that into account. Also, there's a lot of letters of support. It's obvious that he has a good reputation, both within the fire department and in the community, and a lot of support out there. So that's mitigating for me.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else on the committee, aggravating or mitigating circumstances?
Rose Douglas for the record. I think one we normally talk about hasn't been said yet. This incident aggravating did involve a minor, which is, I think, an important aggravating circumstance. Being that, involved as an adult and dealing with somebody who's underage and as a child, I think that is a big deal. There's a balance of power there, right? And I think that's an important aggravating, as well as at the time of the incident, he was and had been in the fire service for quite some time. I think we all know that there are times you deal with very irate, irrational people. However, sometimes it's a little different when it's your family, I think, as well. Mitigating for me is looking at what the conviction ultimately ended up being, disorderly conduct. And I think that's important because it speaks to, and it even speaks in the police reports about the victim statements being not consistent. And so I think it's very difficult for us in this room to say, yes, the strangulation occurred when the courts couldn't determine that that happened either necessarily. So I think that that is a mitigating factor, in that it seems that it was kind of a he said situation that was unable to be fully determined. Even looking at the strangulation kit, a lot of it is statements versus any evidence one way or the other, which is probably why the ultimate conviction ended up being disorderly conduct. So I think that that is a mitigating circumstance, along with the actions that have been taken to recognize a toxic environment and the responsible thing to separate yourself from that environment so that you can go forward responsibly.
Thank you, Chief. Any other committee members? Comments, mitigating or aggravating factors?
Yes, Chair, this is Isaac McLennan. I just appreciate all the comments, and I agree with all the aggravating mitigating factors. That said, I just wanted to add a mitigating factor for me personally. The way I view Mr. Boer as a 27-year veteran, not only an exemplary career, no marks on his career, and I think to go, as we all know, there's firefighters have a high expectation of responsibility, and I think for 27 years to have a long career like that and have no employment issues, no reprimands of any kind. And additional to that, I would add that Mr. Boer is promoted to the level of captain, which comes with increased level of responsibility and further sort of, I would say, levels of expectations to be even higher than that of a firefighter. And so I just wanted to add those two things as mitigating factors that to show his professionalism has been exemplary and his ability to lead in his organization also. Thank you.
Thanks, Isaac, and also appreciate the clarification on the promotion piece from lieutenant to captain. Thank you. Any other committee members? Mitigating or aggravating factors? Yeah, Chris Heppel, Chair, Fire Policy Committee for the record. Just a couple of thoughts around this. In terms of the aggravating piece, I agree with the fact that just engaging in, verbal, or not verbal, but in, physical contact is certainly not that becoming of a public official, but also the component with the minor. But certainly I can understand the circumstances and the frustration, I'm sure, and the emotions that were involved in that space, reflecting on my own youth as well as my own raising of my own family. I can understand how that piece is. Just a couple other things to point out is that this is actually the second time that Captain Boer has actually presented. He did present back in November, where that transcript is within it. So just a representation of mitigating, a representation of his position on this statement. The other piece is that, in light of the fact that he's been there 27 years with the department, he has the and the promotion and the pieces like that, he clearly has the trust of his department, and the community is still there and intact. And I appreciate that component as well. As we've seen in many cases here, it's, when people have these incidents, and in this particular case, it almost feels like it's an isolated incident to me. It's how the individual takes responsibility and accountability for their actions. And I think Captain Boer in this case has demonstrated what the expectations of that of a company officer is moving forward. And taking that responsibility and accountability. So for that, I am appreciative. And my final comments are, in his role of taking responsibility and accountability, Captain Boer is, well, I would say, put a lot of rocks in his backpack. And I hope that he's taking care of himself in this space, and he has the support of his peer support groups and his friends and other family members that are also helping him through this piece, because he is a large role and a lot of emotion in this too. And that can certainly have an impact on someone who has already been in this space for a long period of time. With that, I'll go back to the committee and ask if there are any other aggravating or mitigating factors. Hearing none. I'll move on to, I'd like to call for a motion and a second to take action or no action. And then if you could provide a brief statement as to why you are recommending action or no action. Back up, I'm sorry. I'm going to back up a little bit. I skipped a step there. Thanks, staff, for the reminder. I'm going to go back to DPSST staff. Chantel, if you could please review the identified aggravating and mitigating factors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chantel Getch for the record. For the aggravating circumstances, we have that the incident involved a minor. We also said that the time in the fire district, it was a long time, so that he did hold a responsibility at the time of this incident. For the mitigating circumstances, we have, given the family dynamics, it can be overwhelming at times. The sacrifices on Boer, his own self, and to make things better for his family and himself, and to go above and beyond the punishments. He has taken steps to correct the situations. He acknowledges that things went too far and has supplied us with letters of support. The conviction ended up being disorderly conduct and not actually strangulation. As far as him having no marks on his whole career for 27 years, having no employment issues and being promoted to the captain, that shows a high responsibility and that he is willing to lead. This is the second time that he's presenting to the committee, and that shows representation of his position in this case. And he also holds higher trust of the department and community. Did I miss anything or need to add anything additional?
Hearing none, I'd like to look for a confirmation or consensus from the committee members on the identified factors through a nod or a thumbs up. Okay, we have consensus. Now, I'll call for a motion and a second to take action or no action. Please provide a brief statement as to why you're recommending the action or no action.
Jack Carrier, based on all of the mitigating and aggravated circumstances that were already read, I'd recommend to take no action.
Okay.
Andy Ponce, for the record, I will second that. I feel the mitigating factors far outweigh the aggravating factors. I believe it was a one-time incident.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, DPSST staff, Madison, if you could do a roll call vote.
This vote is to recommend the board take action on Clifton Boer's case.
No action.
Sorry, I meant no action. Thank you for the correction. We'll start with Chair Heppel.
Aye.
Then Vice Chair McGrew.
Aye.
Committee Member Carragher.
Aye.
Committee Member Morneau.
Aye.
Committee Member Hopkins.
Aye.
Committee Member Ponce.
Aye.
Committee Member Douglas.
Aye.
Committee Member Lindauer.
Aye.
Committee Member McLennan.
Aye.
Motion carried, no action. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Clifton. I'll go ahead and get in contact with you later this afternoon.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, we did have a change up in our agenda, but that completes agenda item number 5, which should take us to agenda item number 7. Proposed rule changes for OAR 259, 009, 0005, 0062, and 0065. If Brooke Bell Ruby could summarize the NFPA 1010 Airport Firefighting Task Force meeting recommendations.
Scrolls right off the tongue. Brooke Valieribi for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is for the NFPA Airport Firefighter Task Force and accompanying Oregon administrative rule changes. So in November of 2025, DPSST staff convened a task force of content experts to review changes to NFPA 1010 in relation to airport firefighter standards for certification. The task force was small, but well represented by those agencies that train and certify to this level. The key takeaways from this meeting were that the NFPA airport firefighter will require candidates to meet the general requirements of NFPA 1010 Chapter 4 and will continue to require the prerequisite level of Firefighter 2 certification. The certification title has been updated to NFPA Airport Firefighter, all one word for firefighter, which aligns with the other NFPA updates. The task force reviewed several deleted job performance requirements and found that most of the updates were semantical in nature and would not cause significant impact on training and certification requirements. The application for certification has been updated to reflect the current NFPA JPRs. The guide previously mentioned only allowing reciprocity for IFSAC and Pro Board certificates. The task force wants to continue this practice, and staff has also included this on the application so that it's more clear to applicants. As with previous standard updates, staff has updated the task book to clarify how it should be filled out and who it should be signed by. And for this one specifically, we have enlarged the sign-off boxes at request of the task force. The task force also recommends continuing to use task books as the only option for skills-based evaluation and not allowing the use of task performance evaluations in lieu of the task book. Staff is working on updating the guide to certification for this level and will include information related to appropriate courses, task book completion timelines, and reciprocity requirements, as well as appropriate references to the NFPA Annex. With that, I will turn it over to Jennifer Howell for the rule update and fiscal impacts. And then after that, happy to answer any questions about the standard or task force process.
Thank you, Jennifer Howell for the record. So on pages 4 and 5, through several pages there, the administrative rule changes have been presented. These are the technical changes that show adoption of the 2024 edition of the NFPA 1010, which now includes the airport firefighter. So for Rule 259.009.0005 for definitions, we've updated the word firefighter to the one word, as well as just some minor changes to better reflect how that definition is presented within the standard. And then the changes to Section 2A of Rule number 62, which outlines the requirements for certification, are primarily showing that we had it previously listed as the standard adopted under NFPA 1003. And so it's deleted that information and added it to Section A, which now includes all of the 1010. And it primarily is the exact same requirements, the NFPA Firefighter 2, the job performance requirements, and the task book. And then one additional technical change in Rule number 65, which outlines maintenance, and that is just the additional correction of the title firefighter to one word. With every proposed rule change, it requires a fiscal impact statement, and based on the review of the task force and staff look, there were no fiscal impacts identified. The changes to the knowledge, skills, or JPRs there were no changes to the knowledge, skills, or JPRs result in a fiscal impact for meeting any of the requirements for certification. So that's a quick summary of the fiscal impact statements that are there for you. So pending your approval of the proposed rule changes, those would be filed with the Secretary of State, open for public comment. As long as no substantive comments about the changes were received, it would continue with your determination whether to adopt standard or not to the board for approval.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion from FPC on the adoption of this OER.
So I have a question more out of curiosity. Why the designation to continue with the task book versus performance evaluation? I think you said what
Yeah,
you shake your head. I'm curious as to the reasons.
yeah. So each time we convene a task force, they kind of discuss whether they want to use the task book or also add the option to do a task performance evaluation. I'm guessing just based on the specialized nature of this position, just like the technical rescue ones. So a task performance evaluation gives the firefighter an opportunity to perform 5 skills essentially, and then that is the representation of their ability. So I would guess that just based on this specialized level, they didn't want to do that. And they mainly just discussed that they just wanted to continue using the task book, and they didn't get super into why not adding task performance. Yeah. That's generally the reason why they don't let task performances happen, though, from my experience with other task forces.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I was just curious.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the OER for the R folks? Hearing none, just a thanks again to DPSST staff with the implementation in NFPA 1010. That's been a lot of work around task forces for you guys. Also, a shout out to those who volunteered to come to the committee. Oregon doesn't have a large presence in the aviation community, so to get folks to come and do this. So a shout out, thanks to Portland, Eugene, Springfield, Rogue Valley, Redmond, and Kingsley Field participating in that. If no further discussion, let's see, I'm going to look for a motion and a second to recommend or not recommend that the board adopt the recommendations provided by the NFPA Airport Firefighter Task Force.
Just for the record, I make a motion that we recommend the board adopt the recommendations provided by the NFPA Airport Firefighter Task Force.
Jack, here for a second.
With that, DPSST staff, so Madison, if you could do a roll call vote.
Sorry, did we do all of the voting? I think so. There's like a vote to adopt the recommendation, and then there's the consensus on fiscal impact, and then there's a vote or two. Did I miss that? I think they're on this one.
I'm on vote number 1.
Sorry, okay. Sorry about that.
This will be the first vote in a series of votes.
Yes. I got off the show.
With that, again, so we have a motion and a second to make the recommendation for NFPA Airport Firefighter Task Force recommendations to the board. Madison, if you could perform a roll call vote.
Yes, sorry, we're recalibrating the cameras really quick, but I will carry on with this. This vote is to recommend the board adopts the recommendations made by the NFPA Airport Firefighter Task Force. We'll start with Chair Heppel.
Aye.
Vice Chair McGrew.
Aye.
Committee Member Carragher.
Aye.
Committee Member Morneau.
Aye.
Committee Member Hopkins.
Aye.
Committee Member Ponce.
Aye.
Committee Member Douglas. Aye. Committee Member Lindauer.
Aye.
Committee Member McLennan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Great. With that motion carried, I'll look for a consensus to affirm or amend the physical impact statement. So I'll look for a thumbs up or a nod. And I do. So we have consensus on that. Finally, I'll call for a motion and a second to approve filing the proposed rule changes for OAR 259-009-0005, OAR 006-0062, and OAR 0065 as permanent rules. Looking for a motion and a second.
Andy Ponce, I'll make a motion to approve what you just read.
Present.
Presented, yeah.
Chair McGrew, second.
Second. With that, I will ask DPSST staff, Madison, if you could do a roll call vote.
This is a vote to approve or to recommend the board approves filing the proposed rule change. We'll start with Chair Heppel.
Aye.
Vice Chair McGrew.
Aye.
Committee Member Carriger,
Aye.
Committee Member Morneau,
Aye.
Committee Member Hopkins,
Aye.
Committee Member Ponce,
Aye.
Committee Member Douglas,
Aye.
Committee Member Lindauer,
Aye.
Committee Member McLennan.
Aye.
Perfect. Motion carried.
That completes agenda item number 7. Next, we'll move on to number 8, which is a request for Fire Policy Committee review of fire certification. If Brookville Ruby to present the Fire Policy Committee, the certification review memo.
Thank you. And this memo is included as a printout that can come out of your packet. So after today, you can keep that with you. So as some background, yes, a souvenir, if you will. Some background on this topic. Jennifer Howell, our rules coordinator, was able to provide us with some historical rule information related to the Board on Public Safety and its adoption of fire certification standards. So in 1997, it adopted 11 Oregon-specific fire standards that translated to approximately 26 levels of certification. A few years later, they made the shift to NFPA standards and adopted 14 NFPA standards and more than 34 levels of certification. Today, we have 12 NFPA standards, 1 NWCG, and 2 Oregon-specific standards, which are maritime and urban search and rescue. And we offer 78 levels of certification from all those standards. And in doing research for this project, I found that the average number of fire certifications being offered from other state fire programs is about 20, with the highest end being 90 and the lower end being just 2 levels of certification. Historically, certification levels have been adopted based on an understood need to the fire service, which is represented by members of each task force. However, there hasn't been any formal process or criteria to evaluate this need after the levels have been adopted and after certifications have been issued over time. Since we are in the process of updating many of the adopted NFPA standards, not only 1010, but there are additionally 1072, 1041, 1021, 1031, and 1035. As well as NWCG and the Oregon specific standards. All of those are in line for update. So we just thought it would be valuable to communicate with the Fire Policy Committee and the fire service more about what these updates entail, and then start the discussion of whether there should be any process or metric for adopting and maintaining levels of certification with this program. So with that, I just wanted to go over what each standard update involves. So it's convening a task force of content experts, preparing the materials that detail the standard changes, comparing the old and the new standards, and then discussion on which levels to keep, adopt, or remove. And I was remiss in your memo, but it should have been noted that also the rules coordinator formats and puts the standard updates into OER drafts, does the fiscal impacts, as well as being available to provide historical information or answer many of my questions. Then staff presents the task force recommendation to the committee for review and adoption, and all the forms and guides on the website are updated. And then we work to communicate these changes with the fire service. So again, the goal of today is to start the discussion on whether there should be any criteria for maintaining the levels of certification that we have. To aid in this discussion, we've provided graphs that show the number of certifications that have been issued for each level in 2 different data sets. So the first set of graphs shows the number of certifications issued only to firefighters who are in our active data set. And the second set of graphs shows the number of certifications issued to firefighters that are in the archive and the active data set. And the thought with combining those is that it would give you a better representation of all the fire certifications that we've really ever issued. So after you guys have time to discuss this, and we can answer any questions, our thought was that you could take this with you and we can potentially revisit this on May 27th at our next policy committee meeting with guidance that we receive from today's discussion. So with that, I will turn it back to the chair to open it up for general discussion and then discussion on the proposed options of A, B, or C. And then I'm happy to answer any questions about this memo or the graphs and data involved.
Christopher, for the record, just start off with just a quick question for the staff. So just, maybe I missed it, just delineate to me the difference between the active data set and the archived data set. It's like, is that years or how does that?
Yeah, so in our current database of firefighters, we have everybody who is considered an active person, and that is they have been actively affiliated with a fire agency within the last 5 years. So once they go to a period of inactivity, they go to our archive. So after 5 years of inactivity, they go to our archive. And then these reports are just based on people with certifications.
Okay. Okay, and so so essentially, if I go through 2 to 3 research cycles as inactive, I get put in the archive.
It's based on your employment.
On your employment. Okay.
Yeah, so if you weren't affiliated with an agency for 5 years, then you would move to the archive.
Okay. With that, I'll just open it up for discussion around what has been presented by staff. Any thoughts, discussions?
Ball for the record, I'll throw out there that kind of as you look through these charts, that Brooke put together, which she did a great job of putting all of this together. It was a lot of reports that she ran for multiple days, but you'll kind of see as you move through the charts that we have obviously some pretty popular levels of certifications and then some levels of certification that almost no one is certified in. So that's kind of pretty telling of where we are in certain levels of certifications as far as how active people are with them versus how we keep these on the books essentially, but no one's applying and no one's being certified, or we're receiving applications maybe once or twice a year.
I think an important distinction in looking at this would be, I mean, unless we can say we have a completely perfectly well-rounded group here that knows everything about each certification, is evaluating those certifications that are rarely obtained or not obtained. And the first question being, is it because they're not needed, or is it because we're not offering the right curriculum for people to get it, or we've made it too challenging or something like that? And first answering that question, if the answer to those things is no, then maybe it's not needed. But I would hate to get rid of something people are trying to do, want to do, they feel it's needed, but we've overlooked a piece like we're only offering a class every 4 years that they need for that, or something like that. So just unintended consequences. I think that how often people are being certified is certainly a large piece of it, but I don't think it's the whole story. So that would be a part of it that I think would be important. I think to get like expert opinion on, I guess, in those areas of saying people who know more about that, say it's a airport firefighter type certification. Well, nobody's ever getting it. Well, I don't do airport stuff. And unless somebody here does and knows a lot about it, getting that input and checking and making sure that that it's truly not needed, not that we've created some other barrier.
And Brooke Valerie, for the record, just I did include a couple of notes about the level, the lower issue certifications. So some of the thoughts of why they may, and that does relate to that. But for example, NFPA support person, that's a brand new level of certification. So we haven't really had time to see how popular that might be. Some of the levels that are low issue are highly specialized or technical, and they're not applicable to the entire state. So, you know, they're regionally specific. Some are Oregon specific, such as USAR Maritime. And again, those are typically more regionally specific. Some have course requirements that are not offered regularly. And then just as notes, some have not been issued in over 10 years, such as search technician, which is part of the USAR levels. And then some are only issued once every few years, such as the marine firefighting for land-based firefighters. As far as knowing whether we are offering courses or training for these things, I mean, DPSST works with the fire service to offer training, although we don't generally do all of the training. So we give different opportunities for people to meet the certification requirements. However, you know, there's always going to be challenges to provide proper opportunity, I guess, for every single level of certification that we have. And just to clarify, like DPSST staff is neutral on the direction of this if we want to continue to go how things are or continue to adopt standards based on need, that is totally fine. We just thought it was worth having the discussion. And I don't know that like an actual look at how many people are being certified in these levels after we go through the task force process has ever been done. So I don't think this kind of backward look at it of like, okay, we've been offering this level of certification for 20 years and we have 23 people certified in it. You know, is that something that we really need, or is there any further discussion that, you know, we should be having about these levels? I'll open it back up for discussion.
Brooke, I have a piece of clarification that I think I know, but I may have confused myself. Claire McGrew, for the record. Once someone is certified and they show up on the list and they're affiliated with an agency, I'm a little confused on whether they stay active, or is there something from a chief, or is there some kind of check-in that encourages, like, or should they really still be a part of this certification? I need some clarification on that.
So I ran these reports so that we could talk about the number of certifications issued, not the status of the certifications themselves. So some of these people have lapsed certifications. So the determination of active people in the active database, they can have active fire certifications or lapsed certifications. This was mainly just to show when we adopt a standard and when we create a fire certification, here's how many of these we have ever issued. Okay. So, you know, like in the complete data set of people who are not in the fire service anymore, but they were certified in Oregon at one point, you know, we've had X number of firefighter ones.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
That does, helps me. I think I was trying to group too many things together.
Yeah, so it's not related. The number here is not related to whether they are affiliated with a department or if they have their certs active or lapsed at the moment.
Okay, so thank you.
Just about the initial like issuance of certifications.
Any other thoughts, discussions?
So a couple of the options moving forward would be like continue to update in that 5-year cycle with the task force, but maybe add an agenda item for the task forces to review the necessity and the history of the certifications that meet that. Is that one option? And then, yeah, when they would like, we just got recommendations, you know, for airport, they might also recommend we get rid of these 3 certs, and that would tend to be experts in that field that may be using it. And then another option would be having a special process created through either fire policy or convening just a separate certification relevancy task force type thing that looks at them all and then maybe has time for like fire service public comment on the things that they maybe are recommending getting rid of. So the group might say, hey, let's get rid of these, but then notify the agencies and give them time to provide input or something like that? Is that kind of what you're looking at direction for, is which way do we want to maybe put this into a cycle to actually look at it? Okay.
Because I think probably many of you remember removal of fireground leader. There was a lot of thought and feeling on that. And so I guess if we can put some sort of process in place, maybe that will prevent, issues like that in the future. And not necessarily that it's an issue, but just having some sort of metric of like, okay, is it reasonable that we only have X number of people in the fire service, and that on a state level, does this need to be something that, we are issuing and maintaining? And because there's, staff is happy to do all of that. But there is a cost associated with every single level of certification and every standard that we have in place. And given the state budget right now, we're just being mindful of all of those options.
Excuse me, Caleb Allrop for the record. Just to add to that, anytime we do change an organ administrative rule, it will always go through a public comment period. So no matter what kind of direction that you advise or what direction we go in, if we are, like if there's a certification review committee, that will always open up for public comment. And we try to advertise that as much as possible through our newsletter and our mass email system. I know we miss a lot of people, but we try to advertise it as much as possible so that people can review those changes.
Thank you, Jennifer Howard, for the record. And so I would add to the discussion, just as we look forward. So there's a look back on what do we continue to maintain, but also as task forces meet and review standards and come across the potential for new certification levels. Is there guidance that can come from the policy committee on what's that threshold? What are the parameters that meet the needs of the state? The guidance that would help direct whether or not a new standard should be, a new certification level should be adopted or not.
Yeah, and Caleb Allrop for the record, to add to that as well. So not just in task forces, but we get approached occasionally just by, people from the fire service that would like to add new levels of certification to what we have. They're outside of even really a current task force purview. So there is also that. So there's potential that we could just keep adding more and more levels of certification and have, no mechanism to kind of measure that and also measure the levels of certification that we currently have.
Any further discussion? It's good discussion. Any further?
And are you looking for a recommendation? I know it's mentioned, like, I see a couple mentions, like there's a action item is to vote, but then it also talks about revisiting at the May meeting. So
it's kind of flexible just depending on the discussion. We just wanted to start the discussion. So if you are like, we want to pick one of A, B, and C and vote on that, and then we can talk about what the outcome of any of those would be at the May meeting, or it can be, we want to take this home, think about it more, and then push off voting. That's kind of fine too. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if utilizing our current systems in place and adding to them, so for example, recommendations to either add or remove a level of certification comes through the task force with a write-up, whatever their thoughts is, why do we need it? How does it compare to other states? What seems to be the need across the state versus it's just Lane Fire Authority who feels like they need this super cool special cert, and then it gets recommended and then it's discussed. I mean, it might make this meeting a little longer sometimes, but it's discussed in a meeting that's already occurring and it becomes an agenda item, an ongoing agenda item to approve the removal or the addition of a certification. I think that's would be a good process because we're not reinventing the wheel and we're using systems that are already in place. I think the downside is it appears maybe we need a one-time review of everything that's there to then maybe go forward with that in the future. So I'm almost thinking a hybrid of saying, yes, let's create a subcommittee, task force, whatever, for total cert review for recommendations to this board. That might make that a long meeting, and it might be right after my term's done, but conveniently, and then kind of do a refresh, I guess, if you will, with a plan to use the processes in place to move forward. And then you are routinely reviewing them, and then maybe circling in the option for new certifications that's not going through a task force to be recommended maybe through the board. So when you do get those people approaching, you're like, well, you're going to have to make a written presentation to Fire Policy Committee at this meeting, so on and so forth, for those new certifications. And that just gives them an avenue, and then they're heard. And if it's reasonable, it can go forward. That's what I would look at, as something like that. That's probably a work group to just refresh it and then create that going forward. But I don't know what other people's thoughts are.
Claire McGrew, I think a smaller subcommittee or something like that would be helpful. Just looking at some of these numbers, and nobody's asking for this, but when we get to numbers driven, I get a little concerned about those types of pieces, just because there's some that I feel like are really valuable, tied to the professionalism of the fire service. Yet I wouldn't want them just excluded because they're a little lower. Of course, to be open to more discussion on some of those pieces as well, but I think it's great. It's a lot of information, and thinking about how we could make sure that we're reflective of what the state's needs are as well, I think is an important discussion that we could have among, especially, I hear what you're saying, Rose, on that. I think there's a lot of folks that we might not have at this table that could help to influence this as well.
Your discussion. Chris, for the record, just a couple of thoughts on it. One is I'm a firm believer, and always have been, and there's credibility and credentialing that's associated with that. We also know from a liability mitigation perspective, that's very important to have those things from a professionalism perspective. However, I also understand how things like policy, SOGs, OARs, ORSs, et cetera, become latent and not of value, or they don't fit the current system, or they're just these odd widgets that are out there that can just kind of emerge, and then they just float out there. And so I agree with the sense that Rose, like, we at least maybe need a one-time piece here to like go through and clean house. Is these things straight? It's sounding like we need to develop potentially a process for the introduction of new certifications, and we need to have a process for the archiving of certifications, because I don't want to get, the things you just don't want to get rid of because of the future. But I think that's another piece there too. And I don't know if this body is the group that can do that. As Claire pointed out, proper representation from the rest of the fire service on that piece. How that committee would roll out, I'm not sure what that would look like. We know you break it down by suppression and USAR and this and that, that I would yield that thought over to the staff on that particular piece. But I also want to be aware of, one is when you have more of these certifications, is the work that goes into that just to maintain them. So just to have, it's like, the volunteer that's on your payroll that doesn't do anything, and they're like, well, it doesn't cost you anything. Well, actually it does, because I'm paying workman's comp, and I'm paying for uniforms, and I'm paying for these things, right? So just because something is on the record and isn't being used doesn't mean there isn't a cost associated with that. So I want to be aware of that piece. The other one is just time to do this. I mean, here we go. There's another task force, right? Or whatever. And you guys, if you're not task force leader certified, I'll sign your task book. So happy to do that for you going forward. But yeah, I'm leaning a little bit, for me personally, just on the sense of bringing a group together. The other part is I'm in a space of not necessarily waiting until May if the group is in that space, because I think I can feel, just for me, there's a sense of urgency to let's get things going, and to wait another 3 months to make decisions on that can also be stressful. And so with that, I'll throw my piece in there. If there's any further discussion with the group. Recommendations. Okay, hearing none. Here's what I'll propose as a recommendation is that, for the discussion and guidance, and I'm looking at staff's handout here. One is to create a work group of fire policy committee members to discuss possible certification thresholds. B was maintain the current process and continue adding certification levels. Task forces, and C was other recommendations or thoughts from the group. My recommendation would be is that we move forward with creating a group of Oregon Fire Service members to discuss the certification, not just fire policy, however that is defined out. And what my recommendation will be is that if approved by or recommended by the committee to move forward with that staff comes back to us and with this is what that's going to look like. And then we vote on moving forward at that point or consensus. That would be my recommendation. Any additions? Chief.
Add some to that. I think that group should also help develop that process. So for adding and or.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely, sir. Thank you, Seth. Well said.
Routine updating, that's not having everything at once in the future.
Yeah, Chris Heppel for the record. Yeah, that group would also be responsible for developing the process for the introduction of new certifications and the removal of certifications. And whether that's through fire policy committee or something like that, it should be something that's documented and is well understood, so we don't have the emotional pull of the fire ground leader. I wasn't there, but I heard you.
Some investment.
Yes. Any further thoughts, folks online? Levi, what does ODF say?
For the record, Levi Hopkins, yeah, I would agree with your proposal there. I'm struggling with, how this policy committee fits in, I guess, to it as well.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anyone else online? That's around that. Okay, you actually want to vote on that then, looks like?
Yeah, so I think we could just vote to take option number C, and that will create essentially a work group or a task force.
Option C or A?
It's slightly different.
Slightly different.
So I think.
Now I'm gonna have to write something out. Not a problem.
Maybe just involved to create a task force.
So I'd like to see, let's get some verbology going here so it sounds right. Call for a motion in a second to direct DPSST staff to look at the development of a task force or a committee to review fire service certifications, as well as developing a process for the introduction and the removal of fire certifications within the DPSST system. DPSST staff will report back to us at the next fire policy committee meeting with recommendations as to what those task force or forces may look like.
Rose Douglas for the record, I make a motion that DPSST staff moves forward with the recommendation as read by Chair Heppel.
Jack Carrier, second. Okay. Madison, if you could do a roll call vote.
This vote is that the FEC recommends DPSST moves forward with option C or what Chris Heppel just, I'm not going to restate it. We will start with Chair Heppel.
Aye.
And then to Vice Chair McGrew.
Aye.
Committee Member Carriger.
Aye.
Committee Member Morneau.
Aye.
Committee Member Hopkins.
Aye.
Committee Member Ponce.
Aye.
Committee Member Douglas.
Aye.
Committee Member Lindauer.
Aye.
Committee Member McLennan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, thanks for the work on that, folks. I appreciate that. Thanks for staff for the presentation piece. Hopefully it's going to help the whole system move forward. Look forward to the follow-up. That concludes number 8. Moving on to agenda number 9. This will be the Fallen Firefighter Memorial Wall nomination for Battalion Chief Michael Merlino. So we'll go ahead. Yeah, this will be a Fallen Firefighters Memorial nomination for Battalion Chief Michael Marino. And if Brooke Bell Ruby could report on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brooke Belruby for the record. Battalion Chief Michael Merlino passed away from thyroid cancer on August 9th of 2025. His case is unique because the State Workers' Compensation Board ruled it was not occupationally related. Rather than appeal, a settlement was reached due to his declining health. In his nomination packet, there's a similar case for Paul Beaker, whose thyroid cancer claim was initially denied for the same reason, being that thyroid cancer is not cancer of the throat. But ultimately, Beaker's claim was overturned, or his denial was overturned, and his cancer was deemed occupational. Merlino's case was reviewed and approved by the Public Safety Officer Memorial Fund Board, and after an application for line of duty death benefits was received. The determination and approval for line of duty death benefits are separate and distinct from memorial inclusion, but it is also relevant for consideration. Oregon follows the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation criteria for inclusion on the National Memorial. The memo outlines how Merlino's cancer should qualify under Oregon's cancer presumption laws. However, since this memo was written, the Honoring Our Fallen Heroes Act has passed, and the National Memorial will also consider inclusion based on either state cancer presumption laws or the cancers listed in the Honoring Our Heroes Act. Thyroid cancer is included in the Honoring Our Fallen Heroes Act, so Merlino should qualify for the National Memorial. Because of this, staff recommends that he also be included on the Oregon Memorial. And with that, I will turn it back to the chair for discussion and a vote.
Any discussion on the recommendation?
Andy Ponce for the record. I agree with the recommendation. I think there's more and more information coming out on thyroid cancer and how it relates to the fire service. I think we're just, in the future, it will be recognized. I think we have some more work to do on that.
Okay. Anyone else? Chris Apple for the record. I also have the privilege of sitting on the Public Safety Memorial Benefits Board. And when this case came across, and there was actually some interesting discussion around this piece. And one of the parts that, I took the time to point out was that it's about exposure for us. And, understandably the throat component there. But if you look at much of the research that's been out there about our exposure, one of our most exposed areas is our throat area, which anatomically, that's where our thyroid lives. As well as many other areas. So that's a strongly exposed area and exposure to that. And so I did point that out as part of the nomination for the benefits component of this. And so I agree with Chief Ponce around that part of seeing this added in and not being directly tied or connected, but anatomically and exposure wise, it's right in alignment with the work that we do in the fire community. So thank you for that. Any other further comment? Discussion. Hearing none, DPSST staff, if you could do a roll call vote.
This vote is to confirm Michael's inclusion on the Fallen Firefighter Memorial Wall. We will start with Chair Heppel.
Aye.
Vice Chair McGrew.
Aye.
Committee Member Carriger.
Aye.
Committee Member Morneau.
Aye.
Committee Member Hopkins.
Aye.
Committee Member Ponce.
Aye.
Committee Member Douglas.
Aye.
Committee Member Lindauer.
Aye.
Committee Member McLennan.
Aye.
And carried.
Thank you. Agenda number 10. So this will be another Fallen Firefighters Memorial Wall nomination for retired Portland Fire and Rescue Captain Paul J. Beaker. I'll turn it over to Brooke Bell Ruby for a summary.
Second for that. Who was the second for that one?
I think I was.
No. Okay, sorry.
You can go back
I
and
make the motion.
do it again.
Can't remember.
I have a tendency to skip things.
Sorry.
No, I think it was the two of us that did it.
So she, okay, so I think
Okay.
just note that.
I have two more opportunities. So again, I'll go back to Fallen Firefighters Memorial Wall nomination for retired Portland Fire and Rescue Captain Paul J. Beaker. And I'll turn it over to Brooke Bell Ruby for the summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brooke Uribe for the record. As mentioned in the previous nomination for Michael Merlino, DPSST was made aware of retired Portland Fire Captain Paul Beaker's case by reviewing documents related to Merlino's application for line of duty death benefits. Captain Beaker died on April 14th of 2023 from thyroid cancer. Paul Beaker's case was approved by the Workers' Compensation Board and therefore qualified as occupational cancer under Oregon law. With updates to the Honoring Our Fallen Heroes Act, his thyroid cancer should also qualify him for inclusion on the National Memorial Wall. So staff recommends that he be included on the Oregon Memorial. With that, I will turn it back to the chair for discussion or any questions.
Any discussion on this nomination for Captain Beaker?
Any points for the record? Now, I worked with him personally, so do I need to abstain from this for potential conflict or?
Have a financial benefit
Okay.
likely from approving.
And I would recommend that we approve it.
Any further discussion?
Second it.
Paul J. Beaker on the Oregon Fallen Firefighter Memorial Wall.
Any
Chair,
points for the
I-
record? I will officially make the motion that we approve. this addition to
For the record, I will officially second it.
Excellent. DPSST staff, Madison, if you could do a roll call vote.
Okay, this vote is to confirm Paul's inclusion on the Fallen Firefighter Memorial Wall. We'll start with Chair Heppel.
Aye.
Vice Chair McGrew.
Aye.
Committee Member Carriger.
Aye.
Committee Member Morneau.
Aye.
Committee Member Hopkins.
Aye.
Committee Member Ponce.
Aye.
Committee Member Douglas.
Aye.
Committee Member Lindauer.
Officially, aye.
Committee Member McLennan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Right, that moves us agenda item number 11. So this is our third Fallen Firefighter Memorial Wall nomination for firefighter Sawyer Ruben Gonzalez Ramiro. And I'll turn it over to Brooke Ruby for the summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brooke Uribe for the record. Firefighter Ruben Gonzalez Romero was serving as a Sawyer on a fire crew and was actively engaged in fire suppression on the Bivens Creek fire in Montana when he suffered a cardiovascular event. Despite immediate medical assistance and resuscitation efforts, he passed away on August 24th of 2025. Under the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation criteria for inclusion on the memorial, a cardiovascular event qualifies if it occurs within 24 hours of participating in an official emergency response or mandated physical training. Because Ruben's cardiovascular event happened while he was actively fighting a fire, his death meets the criteria for inclusion on the National Memorial. And for that reason, we recommend his inclusion on the Oregon Memorial as well. With that, I will turn it back to the chair for discussion, questions, and a vote.
Any discussion on this nomination? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion and a second to include firefighter Sawyer Ruben Gonzalez Romero on the Oregon Firefighter Memorial Wall.
Jack Carriger, so moved.
Andy Paul says second.
Excellent. With that, DPSST Madison, if you could call for a roll call vote.
So it's to confirm Ruben's inclusion on the Fallen Firefighters Memorial Wall. Chair Heppel.
Aye.
Vice Chair McGrew.
Aye.
Member Carriger.
Aye.
Committee Member Morneau.
Aye.
Committee Member Hopkins.
Aye.
Committee Member Ponce.
Aye.
Committee Member Douglas.
Aye.
Committee Member Lindauer.
Aye.
Committee Member McLennan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda number 12, agency update. Director Phil Castle for the update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Phil Castle for the record. First thing I wanted to say was, I said this to the other policy committee I spoke to a little while ago. I ran across a rule the other day that I didn't recognize. It seemed a little out of place, and I was looking for historical context to this rule and just couldn't find any. And I had to go way back. I talked to former board chairs. I talked to the former director of this agency. Some of you might know, Eric Skablix, who I talk to frequently, thankfully. And he'll watch this, by the way. You can guarantee he'll watch this. And I came across and was directed to a 10-year-old board process. And I reviewed the record of the 10-year-old board process. And thankfully, that information was talked about at the board, and it was talked about richly. And I was able to determine the history of that rule, as well as some help with our Jennifer Howell and others. And the reason why I bring that up is your behavior today was awesome. Like the richness of the discussion in this policy committee, you're making history, you're changing policy, you're changing the course of the fire service here in this room. And the fact that there is this much rich discussion as what happened here today is super valuable. So I just wanted to reinforce that. I wanted to thank you for doing that. There is a lot. All of you have very important jobs. There is a lot here to review. So I'm grateful that you took the time and you spend the time to do this, and you talk as much as you do about what's going on here, and you take it as seriously as you do. And I also know a lot of you are going to have to leave this room and go elsewhere on this campus to help out with other things that you're doing to support the state. So I'm grateful for that as well. I also want to give a shout out to the staff. There's a lot of work that goes into this, and I know you all recognize that, but I really appreciate the staff and how much work they put into this and the professionalism that comes off at these boards. And I'm going to continue to brag a little bit about this team because our team is functioning at a level that hasn't happened in years and years. We're doing more volume of training throughout the state. We're doing more volume of training on this campus. We had ladder truck training for the first time on this campus. We have a fire classroom that is dedicated to fire now on this campus for the very first time. And Chair and Chief Douglas, you all are utilizing that classroom now. So there has been a lot of red on this campus, and it's great. It's great because this is a public safety campus and there should be more red on this campus. Yesterday, we tentatively committed to an OVFA conference happening in 2027 here. We've been working with the president on that, and so we're very excited about doing that and preparing for that for the 27 year. So there's a lot going on, but I just want to compliment Kayla and Brooke and team on all the work they're doing and raising up the team. So very pleased with all that. Like every state agency, like Chief McGrew is dealing with, we are, waiting on pins and needles about the outcome of this legislative session and how it will potentially impact state agency budgets. It will impact state agency budgets, but it won't equally across the board. So we are all waiting to see how we come out in all of that. I know OSFM is waiting to see how we come out. The news about projections for fund sources is mixed. DPSST is funded by 3 sources, and the most major of which is called CFA, or Criminal Fines Account. That projection has taken a huge dip. It is only about $100 million account, and it took a $10 million dip in projections. DPSST is the #1 prioritized agency for that account. And we used to have about 13 or 14 agencies on that account when I first got here. It's now down to 3 or 4. DPSST is prioritized to it. Next is DOJ, and after that is DOC. Not sure if there's another agency on that, but agencies will continue to fall off as that fund source becomes less and less available. We are also funded by FIPT, which comes from a RIB from OSFM. And we are also funded minusculely on general fund. We get a very small amount of general fund, but that's for very specific things like debt service and special projects that have been approved and so forth. So the good news is we've been directed to continue with our special projects. One of those is the learning management system that we will continue. We've officially kicked that process off. We have a project manager in place, and we're excited about actually having a learning management system in this academy and being able to leverage that across the state for all public safety professionals eventually. We are also doing our deferred maintenance, which we got some bond funding for. This is a 20-year-old facility now and is starting to have 20-year-old facility problems to the tune of around $20 million worth of needed facility maintenance. And we received 3.2 million towards that. So we are just, and our team is doing a really great job of triaging what needs to be fixed first and what needs to be worked on first. So we will see how session comes out with that. I want to turn it over. Before I do that, I want to leave myself open for any questions that Mr. Chair, you may have, or any members of the committee may have of me. I'm happy to answer them. Hearing none, turn it over.
Thank you, Director Castle. Kayla Ballrot for the record. It's funny that Phil mentioned Red on Campus and the work that the fire program is doing, because I have some stats for you from 2025. So on the certificate, since it is kind of the beginning of the year, still a little bit, I thought I'd kind of go over these. So in 2025, on the certification side, 6,513 certificates were issued to the Oregon Fire Service. That is an extremely high number, and it was a little bit higher than in 2024. And then with that, 620 firefighter 1 certificates were issued and 586 firefighter type 2 certificates were issued. So those were the top 2 certifications in 2025. Those kind of flip-flop back and forth over the years. Sometimes firefighter type 2 is higher, sometimes structural firefighter 1 is higher. This year, it just so happens to be that firefighter 1 is higher, so we'll see what 2026 brings. And then the PAF's processed, and that's the form that the fire service submits to us to make changes to their roster, add fire chiefs, training officers, things like that. That was 3,427 PAF forms. So very high numbers. Nothing has dipped or anything like that. So just wanted to highlight that. And then on the training side, the classes that were taught by our DPSST trainers were 271 classes. They taught 3,914 students. And then kind of along those same lines, so in combination with the classes that our trainers taught, plus the classes that we provided or hosted that our trainers didn't teach, but kind of we had a hand in providing the training. That is 317 classes to 4,677 students. And of those trainings,